looked on, but he's heads above the rest. His knowledge can't be questioned. You can put it to the test. So if you want to hear the truth and have nowhere else to go, I'll give you the solution. Just tune into his show and just kneel before Zod. Kneel before Zod. Kneel before Zod. Kneel before Zod.
Welcome, everybody, to the first stream of the new year. So, let me see here. Just going to. All right, hopefully that works. Welcome, everybody. Today I will be doing some talking about writing elements and all of that good jazz. So super excited. Hopefully everyone had a great new year. Just to let you guys know, I haven't had very many streams because I had a ton of stuff going on, went to a New Year's party, had great fun. We'll be doing some streams tonight. So and I'm testing out my speaker mic because my regular mic is all messed up. So I have to go back to using my mic on my computer until I can get the other mic working. So hello out there. How are you? Welcome. And today we will be talking about writing and doing tongue-in-cheek only on my channel because I normally don't do these. So let's see. Hello, Aaron. Hello, Lemon Pie. How are you guys doing today? Hopefully, I sound okay. I don't know. I don't have the capability of hearing myself, so hopefully, everything is good. How are you guys doing in the new year? And yeah, welcome to the first new stream of the new year. So yeah, what's up? How is everybody? Let me know in the comments below. But today was gonna kind of go over writing and I suppose world building, building different worlds and things of that nature. Um, oh, okay. Well, I guess that is that's better than sounding obnoxious. Let me see. Yeah, I've really been trying to adjust my audio. So let's see, stereo, audio, echo cancellation, automatically adjust mic, which I did. Yeah. Let's see. Okay, well. All right, well, hopefully this helps a little bit. Um, hey, Sassy Queen, how are you? How are you, everyone? Good to see you. Good to see you. Well, let me see. All right, let me try that. All right, I don't know if my audio is louder or not. But yeah, I haven't used the computer mic in forever, so I don't know how it sounds. But welcome everybody, welcome. The first part of this is kind of like a mic check to see if my sound and everything is okay, and yeah, and then I'm going to dive into it. I have been working on a novel, and I finally started it. So I'll be doing a reveal of that today, which will be great. Hopefully people like it. But also see who's coming in here. I know Books by Jay should be joining me here shortly. So, how was everyone's New Year's out there? Tell me, what did you do during your New Year's? Did you do anything fun? Did you do anything excited? Did you have a party? Did you not have a party? Definitely let me know what you did for your New Year's. And what are you doing as far as anything interesting that you're looking forward to seeing this new year, stuff like that? As you know, I do movie reviews. I will be doing a review tonight with Bitchy Unicorn for Megan and Puss in Boots. So that will be later on tonight if you guys want to check that out. But is there anything that interests you? I actually have a couple of movies, some movies and things that do interest me a little bit. So let me know, what are you guys interested in this year? What have you been looking forward to? What have you not been looking forward to? Is there nothing at all? Ah, you slept for the new year. Well, sleeping for the new year could be exciting. Me, I actually had a day off, so I worked like 8 days straight for uh the winter holiday. Oh, there we are. Hello, I was buying myself time. I had no I had no real plan.
Oh, you okay, bud? Okay, sorry. Hi.
Hello.
As you saw, my son was using me as a jungle gym.
Oh boy, I can't tell if that's me echoing. Yeah, that could. Yeah, that's definitely me. I have no clue what's up. Oh my goodness. Okay, I'm just gonna have to go to this. This is really pissing me off, son of a bitch. Okay, hold on.
It wouldn't be an episode of Tongue in Cheek if it didn't happen. Well, hi everyone. Hi, Sassy Queen. It's nice to see you. Oh gosh.
All right. Okay, let me try this.
You sound good to me.
But now I can't hear anything.
Oh.
Doesn't your mic work?
No, otherwise I wouldn't be using this. Jeez. But I still can't hear you, so that's a problem.
Oh. Well.
Good.
All right. Let's see. We've got. Hi, Aaron. Hi, LP. Hi, Sassy Queen. I said hi to you. And imagine that. The fandom zone is here.
Okay.
Whew. I have nothing prepared. I'm not ready for this at all, but I'm here, ride or die. So, how's everyone's holidays? Everyone doing good?
Yeah, see, I can't hear you. Can you hear me?
I can hear you.
But I can't hear you.
I'm not muted.
So, that's mildly inconvenient. And my hat doesn't fit. I hate these so much. Uh,
Obviously, LP, it's a little bit of a mess, but we'll figure it out, right?
Alright, let me try this.
Oh, hi. Just me, by myself. Me, myself, and I. Me, myself, and I. Yeah, 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 yeah. And that's true, LP. So everything happens for a reason, right? So while he's figuring that out, sorry I've been so MIA lately, guys. There's been a lot going on personally. A lot of shifting and changing, and new direction going on in my life, and things like that. Um, but I'm currently working at the same time, so bear with me if I'm looking this way. But basically, long story short, I'm just glad that 22 is over and we can move forward to 2023, and it's going to be fine. It's going to be fine. I'm sorry for being late. As you saw, my son was climbing all over me. um, but yeah, we had a pretty okay holiday. We were all very sick. So we didn't do any plans at all. We literally canceled on just about everyone and stayed home. And it was probably one of the nicest Christmases I think I've ever had. How were your guys' holidays? Anything good? Anything fun and exciting? Did you guys, I don't even know if you guys celebrate Christmas. Tell me what's going on. I'm so glad that you guys are here, and I can hear my son and my husband upstairs playing. um, so basically, I'm going to tell you about something called Kindle Vella. I don't know if you guys have heard about it. It's a new program that Amazon is putting on, and the reason why I'm bringing it up is because hopefully here in the near future, I will be releasing some books on there. My editor thinks it'll be a good shot. I'm so glad to hear that, Sandy, because literally, like I said, like that was probably one of the best things about our holidays is we didn't stress about anything. We were sick, we stayed home, and you know, and that's what we did. But Kindle Vella is a new program that I don't know if you guys are familiar with something called like Wattpad or the Dream app or something like that. Basically, the whole concept of Kindle Vella is um, you can post like chapters, and then you can charge people to open your chapters. So like a lot of authors will do like the first 3 chapters are free, and then chapters 4 through 6 you have to pay for or whatever. And so one of the things that my editor is doing, she just launched her program, her Kindle Vella stuff, which by the way, if you want to check it out, give me 1 second. I'll get in my messenger here and pass you guys the link. Feel free to check it out. Well, she's testing it out before we put my stuff on there, and it looks like we'll be able to put my stuff on there and Kindle and get print out there at the same time. So that'll be nice too, as well. And I'm pretty excited. My biggest goal for this year is I'm going to be published, and whatever I can do to make that happen, I absolutely will. So here is, if you guys are interested, there is the link for her Kindle Vella. She's a great author. I really love working with her. I'm really glad that oh, did it work? Oh, it did. Okay. Looked weird on my end for a minute. So basically, it's a really cool system, I think, and my biggest thing is I want to be published this year. So whatever way I can make that happen is the way that I'm going to go. You know what I mean? So I'm going to be out here reaching my goals. For those of you that don't know, I do have a YouTube channel as well. Wonder if it'll let me. I'm just going to drop my links in here, buying time, not to promote myself on Zod's stream. But I have a YouTube channel as well. I think most of you are already subscribed to it. I love communicating with you guys, and my channel is kind of turning into a writing channel, but also it's turning into a mental health channel. So if you guys are interested in that content, I will do that. Let's see. Maybe. I think it's just J. McCarthy World. But yeah, so I don't know why am I so disorganized? Like y'all, I've been going through so much personally, so I have not I'm really trying to get back in the swing of things, man. You guys feel that after the holiday you're just trying to get back into it? There we go.
Okay. Yeah, I'm still going to be able to hear myself. It's driving me nuts. I don't know. I messed with my mic settings and whatever.
It wouldn't be us if it didn't happen, though, right?
Yeah, I don't know. I had to switch to my normal speaker mic because my actual mic's cord is fucked up. So,
Oh.
Yeah.
Sorry if you hear all that noise. My husband and my son are upstairs wrestling and playing around.
Oh no, Oh my god. All right, there we go. I don't know if anybody else will be able to hear what I can hear on my end. Hopefully not, because I'm hearing some feedback. So I'm gonna eventually have to tinker with this before tonight. I have no clue if it's something in my settings or something like that. Um. So hey, welcome, New Year. Still having tech issues. God, I love technology. So, I came into the whole you were having a rough go at it. So, how has been everything?
It's really been there's been a lot of mental health stuff happening. There's been a lot of transitional things happening with work. I had a bunch of job interviews, so I'm hoping to hear back and I can readjust and start new. I've basically the last couple weeks that I've been kind of, I don't want to say offline because I haven't been offline, but I've been kind of distancing myself from my online life for a little while to try and get stuff under control. And the last couple weeks, I've really kind of learned a lot about the people in my life. And my husband and I are basically cleaning house with people that aren't serving positive, places in our, space. So it's been interesting. But how about you? How was your holidays? Anything good? We were sick, so we didn't do anything.
So, Christmas, I worked 8 days straight through until I felt the urge to kill all of my coworkers towards the eighth day.
Oh.
In which case, I had 3 days off, and it was the best 3 days ever. We went to a New Year's party, had a lot of fun, and then I got inspired, so here we are. So, yeah,
Yay!
my inspiration came actually in an odd place, and that's why I wanted to talk today about world building. Leads us into a topic. So you never know where your world's going to spring from, but I like to think I take various inspirations from different horror things. So if you guys don't know, I'm a huge fan of Ron Perlman. I recently brought a game where he voiced a dead cowboy who kind of looks like Ghost Rider. And I'm playing this game, and like the music is going in the background and everything, and I'm like, God, Ron Perlman, not gay, but I'm saying his voice anyways. He's got that very like.
Does something to you?
So, anyways, um, yeah, I've sitting there playing it, and I'm like, hmm. So, as you guys know, I had an idea for a story of telling a view from a serial killer's perspective, which um, actually didn't realize that is where the end of my story is going to be. So,
Mhm.
I constructed this whole title. It's going to be called Fear West. And it is a 4-part horror anthology that will span decades of time, to which every book will take place in a different historical time period, but it's more of a what if. The horror is the things that change within history. And this first book will be the Civil War era. So it is what if the South won, which you guys know me. I like controversy, so that
Of
should
course.
get Twitter talking. I had 3,800 views for the for the tweet, if you notice.
Mhm.
So yeah, hopefully, you know, and I'm not going to tell you guys because I'm not going to give everything away. You're going to have to read my book if that's your thing. But I will tell you that um, when I was writing it and stuff like this, and actually, my lovely lady has been subjected to listening to me more of just being like, "Hey, honey, what do you what do you think of this idea?" And
Aw.
she's all like, "Hey, I don't have any idea until you put it all together." So, which was a good point. But she's also given me some good ideas as well, which I've incorporated. So,
Which I
um,
love that. My husband and I, we talk about my books all the time, and I'm always like, "What do you think of this?" And he's like, "Oh, well, I would kind of, if I was reading it, want to go this way." And we kind of like talk it out. So I think that's awesome that she's been able to do that for you.
yeah. So, I've just been uh, coming up with different ideas, but I have a basic premise, which I'm going to share with everyone today. And hopefully you like it. But before I'm going to share, this is what we call the hook, guys. So we're going to talk about world building before we get into any of what I have to provide. But I will share today the chapters and the introduction to my story. So you get a vague idea. And you all can
Nice.
sit and ponder based on the chapters you hear of where this book is going. But yeah, I had no clue until I started writing that I'm probably heading down not just straight horror, but there's very dark satire, which hopefully people will pick up. Um, so yeah, it's interesting how a world comes together, and I want to talk to you about this because I know we've touched on it a couple of times, but I found it interesting because my world started constructing itself. Um, and like I'm very Tarantino esque. I've had the end of this story, and the beginning just kind of started presenting itself. Even in this story, because it's 4 volumes, but I actually start at the end of the story as the first chapter. So,
Okay. If you
uh,
do it, it'll be awesome.
yeah, that's always the fear, right?
Yep.
Oh, uh, hey, lemon pie. Oh, they'll be right back. So, anyways, yeah. So when I started building the world, I constructed it kind of backwards. So when you world build, do you start with the world first, or does it kind of open up and present itself as you start to write?
Um, I think I have like a general, like I think when I world build, I always start with the story idea, and then I start with the name of the world, and then once I figure that out, excuse me, and I have like the basic plot down, that's when I start to the world just kind of takes on its own life at that point. And when I start feeling like my characters are going to multiple places and stuff, that's when I'm like, oh, I should probably have somebody create a map for me. And so that's when I start thinking about, what my world is actually going to look like. But I always start with the story idea, and then it leads to the name, and then it leads to the rest of the world. And the world just kind of does its own thing.
Yeah. So here's the hard part, and kind of my cautionary advice that I will not be taking whatsoever.
Of course, of course,
Because as creatives, we never take our advice. But
ever.
I'm gonna try it, and it's either gonna spectacularly fail or be epic.
Right.
Um, I am creating several worlds, and I'm also building historical pieces, but I'm also tampering with that history. And this is a very fine line to walk because you have to have
Mhm.
details right. You can change certain things, but it's still, and we see this a lot, especially with people who make movies. They will rewrite history without putting the legitimate history into it.
Yep.
It's like they want to do the subject, they want to change it, but they don't want to put authenticity behind it. So uh, I'm kind of striving for that, and each um, book is going to cover a piece of that history. So this first book is the Civil War era mixed with the West, as if the West was never won, kind of a scenario. So what happens if the West moved into and never faded away with the industrial era? What would that look like?
Right.
And then what if one person was born who was never supposed to be born,
Hmm.
influenced a particular part in a war? Does that change everything? And if it does, what are those ramifications of that change? Um, and the other thing I wanted to talk about is because I was really inspired by idiots on Twitter. So thank you, idiots on Twitter. Shout out to
But you
you.
never thought you would have that sentence come out of your mouth.
But uh, I wanted to explore because everybody says this one is prosecuted. This one is always blah blah blah, right? I
Mhm.
wanted to explore a story with if we never, if we didn't stop slavery at this time, would it have stopped naturally? These are
Right.
the things I want to answer in the story. Like, is the progression always the same, or does history really change? Is there bigger or smaller things? And on top of that, I want to scare the shit out of people. So there
Well, of
is
course.
a horror element that appears later. There's also a biblical element too.
Mhm.
Like you said, this world started coming to me very like it was like a flood, and I had to wait. I even have ideas for my second one because, like I said, this is going to be in an anthology. The only thing interconnecting is there's a person we'll get to when I do my introduction. He is called the Barkeep. That's
Okay.
his name, and he's the narrator. There's two narrators. There's a person who narrates their story as we're going through with the main character, and there's an overall narrator. I don't know if you guys have ever seen Tales from the Crypt, but the Crypt Keeper always introduced the stories, and then you got the story, and then he'd do a narration at the end. That's kind of the deal here. So I borrowed from several different stories. Um, so yeah, that's pretty much the setup. And so, as far as world building goes, I think, and I started to really see that getting to know your world, especially if it's real world, is the first thing that you want to do in a story. Unlike Jay here, who just created her own world, I don't know which is harder. But as PB says, I'll keep on vamping until Jay comes back. So yeah, the so when creating this world, I knew I wanted to have a Civil War, but like the West never left kind of a setting. The beginning doesn't really reflect that. I'm working on that more in my next chapter. So when setting up a world, I think if you're going to use a real world setting, two very important key things you have to do. And I take a lot of inspiration from a couple of my favorite authors, Stephen King, Dean Koontz. These guys, they um, even Token to an extent. They're very descriptive authors. I think that when you are writing a story and you're setting up your story, it's very important to be very descriptive of everything that's going on because I think that that sets up in people's minds where there are uh, one complaint I hear a lot, whether it's movies. Hey, I
Hey,
was
sorry about
so
that.
clear that.
Ugh,
So let me ask you something. For
yeah.
me, my challenge is I was talking about my favorite authors, right?
Mhm.
Token, um, Coots, King, they all have this thing where they set up the world for you in such a way, very detailed, so
Okay.
that they don't have to go back later in the story and describe everything. Because, as you know, King's a majority of his novels are set in Maine, so he kind of
Mhm.
lays everything out for you, and then the rest of it is describing what the character is going through in very, very, very strenuous detail, like
Yes.
every aspect. I don't think I want to do that, and I don't think I can do that because my story is first person. So you're not hearing it from me, you're hearing it through the character, which is, folks, extremely 10 times more difficult.
It is. It is. It is. And literally, like, my favorite way to write is actually first person because it makes it easier for me to put myself in the shoes of the character as I'm trying to write. But it's also much more difficult because I'm trying to also figure out how to input all of the surround information. So I totally feel you on the complication of that.
Because I was like, I felt like I could do the bartender narrating, but I only wanted to use them as a bookend,
Okay.
which Bitchy gave me the amazing idea to use Roman numerals. So I have a Roman numeral for when he appears because I put a title twice, and she was like, "You should kind of like do something like that with the Roman numerals, so people don't get confused that there's a title twice." And I was like, "Yeah, actually, that probably makes sense."
Yes, it
So,
totally.
uh, so that was that problem was averted, but now I have the issue of I'm dealing with a lot of real world settings, and so when you do that, you have to describe where the person is at. But now I have to describe where the person is at through that character.
Right.
So, um, chapter one was easy because it's the end. So they're just describing what's happening to them. But now I'm going into chapter two where we're kind of going back to the beginning of the story.
Mhm.
And the beginning is a very key battle in the Civil War, which for the life of me, I cannot pronounce the name of this courthouse, but it's Apoxim. Okay, hold on a second. I'm going to look it up. But yeah, um, so how did you go about describing where your characters are at while I look up this name that is extremely hard to pronounce?
Um, so a lot of my first person stories are my modern contemporary romances. So all I really have to say is like, oh, this is in New York on Main Street. Like, and people kind of generally know what that is or can at least imagine. The best way that I can describe an area, I'm trying to think of a certain scene in one of my books where basically I think the easiest way would be to just kind of like imagine yourself. I'm sorry, would you like this on camera? Is that what you're trying to tell me?
Please.
Yeah. Hold on.
So, hello, Chloe. Or Chloe? Is that hopefully I'm saying your name right? Hello, welcome. Uh, Today we will be talking. This is tongue in cheek. We talk about writing. I will also be doing a small reading of a novel that I'm working on currently. So, hello and welcome to the show. Hello, everybody. If you liked the video, please hit that like button. All of the YouTube things. Join me later tonight. I will be talking about. I do movie reviews as well, and I will be reviewing Puss in Boots 2 and Megan, or M3. Again, I don't know. Some people have a clever name for it. But yeah, hello.
Poor baby.
I did get it right. It's Chloe. Yes. Hello. How are you? Welcome. Welcome to the show.
All right. Sorry about that. My son was running around in my messy office and tripped over something and got hurt. So poor kid.
So the battle I was struggling with, if you guys don't know, the setting is 1865. Okay, and in the original history, General Lee surrendered to Grant at the Battle of Appomattox Courthouse.
Okay.
Appomattox. Yeah, I'm not crazy here. That is extremely hard to say.
Right.
Appomattox. Why were there no normal names? Anyways, so this is the turning point. So when you're dealing with history, especially with wars, in history, and this is the battle historians have, you could really point at several points in history where they may have messed up. But how the story goes, just to give you guys a backdrop, was during the battle, they had taken a big loss at Gettysburg. General Lee went to flee, and he made like he was going to surrender, but he was going to fall back at this courthouse, and there were supposed to be guns and supplies. The North had intercepted that and surrounded him on all sides at this courthouse. So when he got there and he realized all of his troops were going to die, he surrendered to Grant as opposed to get his men killed, which props to Lee, because at least he was thinking about his men. They could have like Alamoed it or whatever, but he decided to just surrender. And after that, soon after, all the Southern troops had surrendered. So my story is, instead of surrendering and being surrounded, they aren't surrounded. So what happens then? And how does the war look after that? And then the intriguing part about this time in history, if you guys don't know, shortly after this battle happened and the war started wrapping up, was the assassination of Abraham Lincoln. So I kind of jigger with the timeline a bit, as you do with these kinds of stories. Right. And Abraham Lincoln's assassination will directly affect the rest of this, because now if Abraham Lincoln is dead, a lot of people were demoralized and things like that. So this is all going to be like a domino effect. So in essence, Abraham Lincoln's assassination is going to happen after they lose this courthouse, which then flips the whole story. So that's kind of where I'm running with this. So, Yes. Hopefully it comes out as intriguing as I'm making it sound, because my goodness, it's harder to write this stuff out than it is to like sit here and tell you what my ideas are.
Hmm. Well, I mean, and that's the hard thing about writing in general is like you have all these great ideas, but like once you actually get down to it, you're like, how do I actually make this look like the way I see it in my head? So like I totally yeah.
And once again, we're talking about the world, so the other hard issue that I run into is like I had to look up the guns and the things like that, because when you're describing something, there will be people who will be interested in this,
Yeah.
and you get that one asshole who's really historically accurate. I'm talking to
Yep.
you, Husky, who will be like, "Hey, man, they didn't have those guns during that time,
Yep.
like." So it's also like going to be conveying messages and things like that. You have to be very careful, and that's where a lot of modern films kind of drop the ball. I've even seen stuff in the '90s where it's supposed to take place back in a certain time, but you still see cell phones and stuff, and you're like, wait a second, like we didn't have that kind of technology. Even if you go to 1990, I think a lot of misconceptions about that, because they'll have the modern tech in the '90s, and it's like my phone was not that good.
Mm-mm.
Um, we were just getting out of like the Wolf of Wall Street design. When Michael
Yep.
Douglas had that big ass brick phone, like we were just getting to like flip phones were the big deal and stuff. People still had landlines. Okay, there were payphones. Um, which you kids won't remember. But yeah, so it's very it's a big battle, and so when you're world building, it's very important to remember if you're going to use specific times, like I am very stupidly doing, and that's why authors tend
Oh,
to
I
create.
didn't realize that you were commenting.
Yeah, like uh,
I just noticed that he was.
Miss J has the easy road because she just created her own rules. So you kind of have like you've had to set up rules and parameters, but I feel like
Yep.
you have more freedom because you're not constricted. Like maybe your romance novels, you have to think about it a little bit more, but
Yeah.
with your fantasy stuff, you can kind of make up the rules as you go. Where I'm very firmly bound into okay, this is a very specific time period, so I have to
Mhm.
know what they would do in
Yeah.
that time period for it to make sense. What Virginia looked like, what New York looked like back then, what all of these key landmarks that'll be in this novel. Like I got to nail it, and it's also hard too because I'm going off of Wikipedia and history
Mhm.
website and things like that. So it's a very fine line to walk.
Yeah.
Uh, what are some key things you could point out as far as world building and
For fantasy or billionaires, or for like my fantasy or my contemporary.
well, I think we'll go more contemporary because it seems like that's where I'm landing, even though it's an older.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. You modern. So basically, for like I was saying earlier, like for like my billionaire stories, a lot of people know generally what New York City looks like. And so all I really have to say is like, oh, my character is over on Broadway in the middle of, you know, Times Square or in, doing, this side or that side. And I mean, it also helps too that like, I had gone to New York a couple years ago. And so like I kind of know the general like what it actually looks like because that's the biggest thing, especially in your situation. Like you said, like you need to have research. And people always say, write what you know, not what you don't know. And I feel like with that comes, knowing that you need to really research everything when you like, especially in our situation with your stories, because like you said, you're bound by rules and time and the equipment and technology that's available at that time. Just like for like my billionaires, I know that like everybody most likely has a cell phone. Oh, work call, hold on.
That was perfect. That was like right as she said that, she got a call on the cell phone. Anyways, hello, Papa Cotton. How are you? Good to see you here. I am talking about my 4-part anthology that I'm coming out with called Fear West. I will be doing a reading in a little bit, an excerpt from my novel coming out, so hopefully everybody out there enjoys it. It's kind of an introduction. Maybe I'll do the first chapter. We'll see what the time looks like. But yeah, so hopefully you're enjoying it. Right now, we're talking about world building and the importance of making sure is that if you're going to write a novel, your audience can understand and comprehend where your novel is set and what kind of world that they're in, the rules of the world, what the characters are bound by. And I think, especially us who critique movies or stories or games or things like that, one of the things I find myself, you could be calling it nitpicking or whatever, one of the things that I find extremely agitating is when, especially in this age that we live in, where authors or people shooting movies seem to disregard their setting just for a cool aesthetic, right? How many movies do you watch where a writer or director will literally break immersion by throwing something into their movie that doesn't make sense to what's going on, you know? If it's a period piece, they'll put something modern in it for a cool action shot or something like that. I think it's very important that if you are creating a world, you make for yourself perimeters and you make yourself rules and structure your world in a way that no matter how cool your concept is, it fits within the bounds of the story that you are telling. So many times we see people break that, even if you're talking about modern storytelling with modern technology, and especially in horror, people tend to break the rules in order to make scenes work or to make parts of their books work or something like that. And I think it really breaks people out of that immersion that they work so hard to build. It's the theory of, like, for instance, you have a story where you have trapped a group of people in a particular situation. So take your standard cabin in the woods, haunted house, anywhere where someone is held to a specific location. Well, now your question becomes, how do I hold these people in this situation? Now, if you go back in time, that's a little bit easier because the technology is not there. But if we're talking 2023, there's so much technology and so many ways for people to get out of a situation that now you're faced with a problem of why are people staying at this place, right? If your house is haunted, why are you trapped there? If you're being stalked by a killer, why don't you just leave? How many horror movies do you watch where you're sitting there going, just get in your car and go? Why are you still in this place with this thing chasing you? And I think where a lot of stories go wrong is they make people stupid in order for the plot to work. And there's so many movies that I see that have so much potential, or things that I read where I'm just like, these people could have got out of this situation like 20 minutes ago if they would have done this. But they made the character stupid for an inexplicable reason, which is really just to hold these people in this one spot. And so that's why it's important to set up good reasons and good motivations. And it all goes into everything. It goes into character building, it goes into location, it goes into circumstances. You have to make sure that everything lines up to make sense as to why the people are stuck in the situation they're stuck in. One of them, oh, hey, good. I could go on tangents forever. So I
I
was
missed it.
relating this um, because I'm in this specific horror genre. I was relating my point of world building to the classic stuck in a location, right? How many movies have we seen, like a cabin in the woods, or something where there's a killer or there's an evil force on the loose, right? And you're sitting there watching this movie going, everybody
Right.
has cell phones, everybody has a car, and you're sitting there for like an hour and a half going,
Right.
get in your car. Why are you still here?
Yep.
Or you have the one friend who goes back, like they escape, and they're like, oh, Ted's still in there. Let's go back in. And it's just like you're sitting there going, just leave.
Yeah. So easy.
And I said, that's a tricky part with modern stuff, right? Is
Mhm.
that you've got to create more reasons with cell phones, with cars, with all of the things people have to their availability. You have to create a reason as to why they're still there. Why are they still, which is one thing I'm able to eliminate because thankfully this is 1865. I can very easily explain why this person is still in this town when you have to travel like by horse to get somewhere. It's
Yep.
much easier. Um, it will be a different settings as I go, but the tech is going to change very limitedly. So, like a little teaser. My next novel will take place during World War II. So I'm jumping through all of the.
My question though is if you are starting and rewriting history in the Civil War, you said that they're not going to these books aren't going to interconnect at all. Um
They'll interconnect, but they'll interconnect through the bartender who's narrating the story. You'll understand when I get to him, but
which is fine because I was just wondering though because I was thinking about like if the Civil War is changed, would we even have World War 1 and 2? And so that's the thing that is going to be tricky for you. I'm sure you have a answer for that, but I was just thinking about it. I was like, wait, if you're changing the story,
uh, that question you have might be the whole point to my story. I don't want to give it all away.
okay.
Uh, I I'm hoping um and I was kind of telling Bitchy what my end goal is. And she said intriguing, but it's going to be difficult to write because um it's going to be an ending that will be very divisive, I know, because
Yeah.
you're either going to really appreciate where I go with this or you're going to be super pissed. But welcome to my channel. That's what we do here.
Yeah.
So, um, the I want to say a big part of this, and that's why I'm taking my time. If you guys don't know, I've been working on this idea for like 10 years. So, um, the overall gist is I want people to question things. I'm going to leave a lot of hints, a lot of clues. Some of them will mean a goddamn thing. Some of them will. I'm not going to tell you which is which. I'll
Right.
let you guys decipher that. But um, there is an underlining theme and message to the books that I'm writing. And when I thought about horror, I'm really tired of like zombies and shit like that, vampires and things that are
Right.
so overplayed. I think that in horror, there is a certain horror to a what if scenario. I'm sure people think about it like, God, what if the Germans did win World War II? What would that look like? I think a lot of it, and I'm looking to tap into that, like, okay, this is what the world would look like. And do you agree with what my character is doing given the situation? Now, some of these people will be very morally ambiguous, and some of them will be very obviously the good guy, the bad
Right.
guy, but I like characters who are more layered. So
Hmm.
even this first character I have, um, you know, this isn't a spoiler if you've guessed. He's going to be very instrumental to the South winning. But within that choice and within what happens and how he chooses to win and exactly who he is as a person, I want, hey, rookie critic. Oh, I am echoing. I'm sorry about that. I have no clue what's going on. Hopefully, it's not too annoying. But um, I want people to not see my heroes as just heroes. I want my characters to be very um, to be human. Let's put it that way, because not everybody is just all good. Not everybody is just all bad. There's a very gray line within humanity. So writing this story, I wanted it to be: is this person a hero? Spoiler, I told you guys about this story before, but the last book is told from the perspective of a serial killer. He is your hero. I'm not going to tell you how, and he is not a good person. He
Right.
literally kills tons of people. But there is a certain thing that will happen where even the most vilest of individuals will have to do something selfless for the sake of humanity. And it begs that question again: can someone who is narcissistic, controlling, all of these things be a hero? What is the definition of a hero? These are all things I want to tackle in this book that I'm making.
Right.
Hopefully, well. Hello, rookie. Thanks for joining me, man. You do movies. I'm doing my first novel, so
Whoop, whoop. Hi, Jane.
welcome to Fear West. So, Jay,
Yes.
do you have any questions about what I'm building or anything you're curious about that I may or may not answer?
Other than the one question I had, no, because I really curious how you're gonna pull this off. I think if anybody is gonna be able to pull it off, it's gonna be you. But I'm very curious how that's gonna be.
Yeah, I've been sitting back a lot of nights going, this is, the scope of this is huge, and oh my God, will people like this?
Right.
I think when you're writing, and somebody told me this as I was working on it, a good friend of mine from work, and I was telling her the idea, and she goes, I'd love to read a draft of that. And I was like, yes, I will let you. But
Yeah.
she actually gave me the idea because originally my first book, I intended it to be more of a Western. But she goes, I said too, I wanted to smartly attack social issues as well. And she
Hmm.
goes, well, why not put it in the Civil War? If you're going to like World War II and stuff, she goes, why don't you just cover major wars?
Yeah.
And then you can talk about that stuff through there. And that's another part of my book. I want to know, what does slavery look like now that it never got abolished? There was no Emancipation Proclamation, or it was revoked, or what the government does. Now, how does that look? Do we still end up in the same place? And
Right.
by the time you hit the modern era, I will answer the questions of everything that came before, how it affects the current timeline.
Right.
And there is a force. So let me talk to you guys about the supernatural aspect, the horror, because right now I've been talking a lot about timelines, and people are
Yeah.
like, how is this a horror story? It sounds more like time traveling shenanigans.
Right.
There is a force in this novel. And as you know, if you've ever, one of my favorite movies, I don't know how people are going to feel about this, but I love it, The Butterfly Effect.
Hmm.
And in it, Ashton Kutcher tries to save friends from this terrible thing that happens when they're kids. Every time he saves somebody, he fucks up something else, and
Right.
things get worse and worse and worse and worse and worse until finally, at the end of the movie, he realizes he's the issue because
Yep.
he's been fucking with time so much that um, in order to fix it, he essentially has to go back and kill himself when he's a baby. Uh, it's a great movie. It makes you think a lot. Like, wow.
It makes me want to just watch Doctor Who.
But it is that butterfly effect theory, right? Or even Doctor Who. If you notice, he goes and kind of fucks with time a lot, and there is ramifications in a lot of different things that he does. So I needed for my supernatural force. There is a supernatural force, and there is something that is balancing these out. And what I have chosen for my horror in this is going to be the Four Horsemen. And so this is 4 novels, 4 horsemen, 4 perspectives. So there's a theme of 4. There's also a specific meaning to the number 4. If you guys didn't know, I looked this up. The letter 4 actually does have a meaning to it. And hold on a second, I'm just going to read this to you guys because I found it very interesting. And if you wouldn't mind talking, Jay, because I'm just
No, you're good.
distracted by.
My son is throwing all of his toys down the basement stairs now. So which honestly, that sounds like it's going to be a really cool concept, and a lot of people don't ever touch the Four Horsemen, and so I don't know much about the stories myself because I don't really follow that type of stuff, but I do know that I don't ever really hear a lot about the Four Horsemen, and so I think the fact that you're going to be doing that sounds really cool, and it might actually solve half of your issues that you're going to run into by utilizing them as a force for your story.
Yes. So, as you guys know, and it's hinted a lot, when you have time travel shenanigans, and to your point, you said, how does this affect, like, is there going to be a World War II? If the South wins, does this affect it?
Mhm.
And so here is what we like to call the counterbalance. So to correct the time travel shenanigans, the Four Horsemen, who are normally throughout history considered harbingers of death or the apocalypse, if you guys know the stories, the Four Horsemen all come and bring about different things before the last horseman brings the end of the world. But in my case, the apocalypse is kind of kickstarted ahead of time because of changes within the timeline. So the Four Horsemen in my story are actually forces rebalancing the timeline and trying to set things right. So the definition of 4, just to kind of set things up and why I'm using it as a sort of pillar to my story, is it's almost from prehistoric times. The number 4 was employed to signify what it was solid, what could be touched and felt. It's a relationship to cross 4 points, made it an outstanding symbol of wholeness and universality, a symbol which drew all to itself. So the number 4 is the concept of wholeness, uniting something, strength. So 4 horsemen, 4 perspectives, 4 stories. It's all connected, people. I don't exactly know how yet, but it's all.
Careful, you're getting into my realm with that stuff.
No, as I started doing my research on this, I found it really interesting. So you're probably saying to yourself, Zod, who's the first antagonist, depending on how you look at it, or the first horseman? And the first horseman is what they call the Pale Rider, the White Horseman, Pestilence. So historically, the horseman has had several names, but for our purposes, or the one most commonly known, is he is the horseman of disease or how you're choosing to look at it, balancing things out. Things that happen historically, supposedly, depends on whether or not you believe in that, but
Mhm.
like major plagues and things like that that have happened supposedly are connected to the first horseman who brings balance to population in the world. So you see where I'm going with this.
Yep.
Uh, the first entity that will appear in this novel is the White Rider, or I call him in my book the White Cowboy, and he appears to people as a man in all white with a white cowboy hat, kind of faceless. And with him, he may bring about some craziness that our main protagonist will have to deal with. So
Of course.
stay tuned. You'll get the idea. I kind of hint and tease as to what's going on. So I'm mixing and blending several things in here. We got myths and legends and spiritualism, horror, plagues, things of that sort. So,
It's gonna be awesome.
God, I certainly hope so. But yeah. So, what else do we have on world building before I just jump into reading some of this?
Not really. I mean, the biggest thing, especially if we're gonna, because I know some of this, segment is to, help other people that might be interested in writing. But basically, do your research, figure out exactly what your genre is, and make sure you have those core elements of that genre in your world. Like in my fantasies, for instance, there's magic, there's dragons, there's elves, there's swords, there's fighting, there's politics, all the stuff. And so, you have all those pillars um, located in my fantasy books. And so that's basically the biggest thing that I could really say when it comes to world building is you have to, I mean, I don't want to say come out here and do exactly what's been done before with your genres because that's obviously not what we want. You want to do something different. But there are certain factors, certain tropes, certain pieces of the puzzle if you're going to tout that you're writing a fantasy book or for your story. I don't really know what story like where yours would fall into. We're going to have to research exactly. I mean, it might just be a niche type situation for your books because it's got a lot of different elements and so there's really important cores that you have to make sure that you have that are going to be the foundation of your stories and you're going to have to build your world along that, but it also has to make sense for your characters that you're building. So that's really all like I would have to say really about world building.
Yes, ditto for that. And no, I have no clue where I fall as far as genre yet. I'll let people decide that.
Yep.
I will say I'm going for horror, but I think like 90% of my horror may come where we get the last perspective of a serial killer. Uh, these books, there'll be some terrifying stuff in it, but hey, Joey Dimes, hey, KK, how are you? Um, so, welcome everybody, all 5 people watching. You are in the portion where I will read you some of what I've got written. Um, because you've been so patient and so kind, I may even read the first chapter, not that long. I'll read my table of contents, and you guys can kind of decide how it's coming along. Jane Creek says, Zod, have you ever heard of the chronovisor? It's an alleged invention of 2 priests that allowed them to look into the past. That might be something you could incorporate in your novel. Ooh, Jane, thank you. I will look into that.
That does sound really cool.
That does sound awesome. So, here we go. This is Fear West. Don't make fun of me. I will be doing a very prejudiced Southern accent. So, and it may be terrible interpretation.
Would it be easier if I turned my camera off so that you don't feel like you're being watched?
Oh no, no, no! I'm fine with people watching. Uh, oh, that's my government name, but you guys probably could already figure it out. I don't care. Last person who tried to mess with me and dox me, I made their life a living hell. So warning. Fear West. It's by the great Lee Cole, great guy, know him, doing big things. So my table of contents, there will be 20 chapters. Chapter 1 is the bar at the end of the world. Chapter 2 is the end. Chapter 3 is the battle of Appomattox. God, I hope that, you know what, that name is so weird. Chapter 4 is the assassination of Honest Abe. Chapter 5 is the war the South won. Chapter 6 is Home Ain't Home. Chapter 7 is Mad Plague. Chapter 8 is 4. Chapter 9 is Pestilence. Chapter 10 is A Cowboy Rode a White Horse. Chapter 11 is The Choice. Chapter 12 is The End of the World. Chapter 13 is The White Cowboy and James. Chapter 14, Back to the Start. Chapter 15, Death Comes Knocking. Chapter 16, Chapter 15, sorry. Chapter 16, The Bar at the End of the World, Roman numeral 2. Chapter 17, The Truth Revealed. Chapter 18, The Last Stand. Chapter 19, Life, Death, and Everything in Between. Chapter 20, Epilogue, We Only Just Begun. So, yeah, hopefully that sounds snazzy. Don't know.
Snazzy, I really like that. It's how it's all listed out. I'm like, ooh, that sounds interesting. Tell me more.
Yeah. I want people to kind of get a sense and be like, I believe it's very important to hook people. What Lurks Beneath did a video on it last night. I ended up looking up a bunch of stuff that he talked about. Thank you. I'll check that out, James Creek. That may be something I want to incorporate. I definitely like that idea. And it fits the themes as to what I'm going for. So here we go. Hopefully you guys all like it. So chapter 1, The Bar at the End of the World, Introduction. Jesus Christ. I do, when I do an impression, I always do get so like a little bit, whatever, but we'll see. So, well, welcome to the bar at the end of the world. Now I know what what y'all might be thinking. Hey, there, bartender, where am I? Why are you interpreting my thoughts? To jabber on? Well, what if I told you that I've been around, heard some tales of the macabre? Is that something you may be interested in? What if I told you the stories directly affected why you're here? These ain't no random tales, but interconnected stories of horror, loss, alternate timelines. These are tales about the end of the world. But you might be thinking, well, how the hell are you here? Sit down and let me tell you. Let me start with a man named John. John Marshall. John Marshall is a man torn between what is right and what is wrong. He is a war hero, the man who won the South in the Great Civil War. Now, I know what you're thinking, that the war was won by the North. But what if one action, one moment was changed? What if a man who was not actually born was in this version? Ah, I see I got you goat. This is the West that was never tamed. Tech mixed with Western sensibility. This is Fear West. Before I continue, hopefully that sounded good. Let me know in the comments what you think of the accent. I'm not particularly from the South, so yeah. So this part right here is chapter 2, and it's not that long, so I'll read a little bit of it. You guys tell me what you think. I can hear Jay in the background, but I kind of just like been flipping between.
Sorry about that.
No. So, what did you think so far?
I like it. I am definitely intrigued, and I feel like the barkeep needs to be a big role in all of this. And I think it would be hilarious if he actually turned out to be one of the four horsemen, because that would be hilarious.
Well, see, I can't give it all away. Maybe, maybe not. Maybe he's just a collector of stories, or maybe he has a bigger role. Who knows? You got to keep going.
Things that make you go,
So far, people says it sounds good. Thank you. I appreciate it, and thank you, technology, for spell correct. Uh, so I'm not really going to do a voice for this one because I don't got a voice in my head yet, but hopefully it still sounds compelling. So here we go. This is chapter 2. This is called The End. And just so you guys know, I'm a very big fan of Quentin Tarantino. So this is the essentially maybe the end of the story or the middle point. Who knows? You'll know when you catch up. Um, so, chapter 2, The End. There I was at the end of the line. The blood pooled by my feet as the wound in my chest leaked out. The world was a pitch black haze. Consciousness flew away. My fucking gun was so heavy I could barely feel the grip. The town was mad at me, coming from every side. Women scratching your eyes. The men let out a primal howl like wolves that were hunting their prey. The cowboy in white started this whole mess, said the world ain't right. My life threw off the balance. I saw four faces, four places, four horsemen, always four. This was an enigma. Yep, at the fucking end of my life, not a damn thing lined up. A man with red eyes, with white foam coming out of his mouth, blood pouring from his eyes, charged at me. I held up my revolver and shot him in the head. His neck snapped back. He slumped over on the ground dead. The woman jumped at me, fingernails clawed at my flesh. Her breasts exposed, her eyes were enraged. The town was lost, and I needed to get out. My legs and feet didn't have the power to carry me out. I had 3 shots left in my 6-shooter and no fucking way out. This was Custard. This was the Alamo. This was every bad fucking thing rolled up in one. A man thinks of his bad decisions and the lives he's taken, the afterlife. And if God is all the is real and all that philosophical bullshit. The end in the end, I just felt the innate urge to live, to meet the cowboy and put a bullet square between his eyes. I shot the woman coming at me in the head, took out my Bowie knife, and ran through another poor soul. I heard a scream in my head, "Get the fuck up." I surveyed the pitch black for any type of escape route. If this was my last ride, the last fucking battle, then let it start. Then let me start at the beginning. The thing that made any kind of sense. Let's start. And then it goes into the next chapter, which I haven't written yet, so you guys are just going to have to wait for that.
I like it. I like
So
the
there you
imagery.
go.
I think you're doing really well with the imagery and kind of like grasping exactly what these individuals are feeling in the moment. So I think that's really, really well written, even for a raw, uncut, unedited version.
Yeah, like I'm gonna clean it up a little bit. My chapters are a little bit shorter, but the way I write is I don't write with a specific amount of pages in mind. I just write until I feel like it's the end of that chapter. So I don't know what exactly the correct amount is. I feel like I am just looking to keep people compelled and enthralled to make it to the next point in my story. I'm pretty sure, especially when I get to like the next chapter, which I'm currently working on,
Mhm.
and the battle itself, there's going to be a lot more things that I'm going to have to describe, and
Mhm.
then it'll kind of lengthen itself out. But essentially, that was the end of the story, and I didn't want to go too far because there is a point you'll get caught up, and then you'll see what happens to
Right.
our hero. And keep in mind, that is about, um, if you look at my table of contents, it's not even towards last stand. So there's still a lot,
Mhm.
a lot to go through. So I'm not going to tell you whether or not he makes it. Maybe he dies.
Maybe.
Maybe he doesn't.
Never know.
Who knows? um, I am. Oh, thank you. When it comes to gore, um, I fall in a camp where I don't feel like it's scary or very gory to people. If you're saying like, oh, there's guts everywhere and stuff like that, I think it's in the details, like describing the actions of what is happening to the person, things like that, and having people paint their own picture.
Right.
Like from that, I give you just enough to picture the people and the action that has happened, but in your mind, everybody I think will imagine it different than how I imagine it as I'm
Well, of course.
saying it. So,
But no, I like it. I'm really glad that you're finally able to start writing again.
yeah, it's really weird where you find inspirational come from.
Yep.
I've been keeping on a schedule. I tell myself I'm gonna write a chapter a day or look something up for my story or
Yep.
anything once a day to kind of keep the momentum going.
And that's the best way to do it, is to chip away at it a little bit at a time. Because I was talking to my best friend, and she was like, oh my gosh, you've written so much. And the last time we talked about my book, and I was like, I just make sure that I write or do some research or something, or hand jam if I have to, a couple sentences a day. If that's all I can get in, that's all I can get in. And I've really started adjusting. I'm taking the pressure off of myself, because that's my biggest thing, is I always put so much pressure on myself to write that I don't want to write, because I give myself anxiety about it. You know what I mean?
Oh yeah, yeah, I
Hmm.
know that feeling.
So, but I really,
Um, yeah. I mean, it's like even if you do something that contributes, like if you guys don't know, it's a fuck ton of research that I have to do. So even if I'm constantly looking up new things, trying to get ideas. Mainly right now, the reason why chapter 3 is not done is because the Civil War had a ton of weapons, if you guys didn't know, and they all do different things. And whilst I was in the military and have a knowledge of weapons, um, older weapons work a lot differently. So I got to make sure that I got the mechanics down before I start painting the picture, because I've got to know as much as you guys know so I can give you the details for you guys to put into your mind. And that's why research is the sucky part when doing something like this, because it's like, okay, I know how it works now. How do I explain it to someone who has never held a gun or they have no interest in that? But I got to paint a picture vivid enough for them to understand how everything works. So in their mind, they're not going, what?
yep.
Like everybody, this first part was easy. I assume everybody knows how a 6 shooter works. And giving the ammo count is just to instill that feeling of desperation. It's more of so you know where the character's at. But now when we're talking about the battle itself, I got to talk about positioning and where the soldiers are into relation of what's going on, um, and kind of break down tactics. And keep in mind too, I'm explaining this all to you not as a narrator, but from my character's point of view.
Right.
So I also have to give a reason of why he's just randomly saying all this stuff he should know, which is one of the hardest parts about writing in first person perspective as well, because it's like the character has to relay information, but it has to sound natural, and they have to relay the information so you know where they are, what they're doing, how they feel, but at the same time, you can't break the immersion by going, why is this person talking to themselves and saying all this stuff?
Yep. And that's the part that's what sucks about writing in first person. Like, but then think about how often you talk to yourself as a human being, so it also makes it somewhat relatable.
It's like, um, and I think that's what's going to lengthen out my story as well, is that to convey like where true position is and stuff like that, I'll have him talk to people. Um, just so you guys are aware, where the moral ambiguity comes in is my character is not a soldier. Surprise. He's actually a bounty hunter. And if you guys don't know, I looked this up, and surprisingly, it was not an uncommon thing. There were marauders and a lot of people hired by both the North and South as, I would say, like early saboteurs, so to speak. Um, so my character is a bounty hunter. And so it makes it a lot easier for me to explain stuff because the general kind of will lay out the positioning for people, but it's really tactics talk because
Yeah.
he's going to be the guy behind the scenes doing the stuff that the soldiers are going to fight the front line. He's the guy who's going to go behind the front line and fuck with stuff. So, and even today in battles, if most people don't know, there are people who are dropped before, let's say, Marines, Army, things like that, special teams, TAC teams, things like that, that are the saboteurs. They'll mess with enemy equipment. They'll paint targets, which is like for missile guidance systems and things like that. We still use all of these things to this very day. Not to get too historical, but if you guys can't tell, I love history. But in the Revolutionary War was where guerrilla warfare started.
Mhm.
The
I love
British, they had a sense of honor. So they had this stupid way of fighting. Well, it's stupid to us now, but back in the day, it made sense. Where they faced the enemy on the field one on one, you'd walk in a straight line and shoot at each other. Sounds dumb now. Back in the day, I guess it made sense. It was a gentleman's way to fight.
Mhm.
Well, why they started losing was because a man known as the Swamp Fox would hit and run. He would hit supply lines and not fight all of the soldiers with all of the guns up front. He'd take out a few people at a time, and then he'd go back into the woods or the swamps, and they'd lose him in there. And they didn't want to send all of these people because he'd attack people from the trees or whatever. So he'd just do these hit and run tactics until he wore down their supply lines. So now you have the Civil War. Well, you have troops that do that on both sides because that's the way we've fought. So it brings up there's people being hired. There's all sorts of stuff very unique that I couldn't wait to explore and talk about. And surprisingly, there was a lot of shady shit we did on both sides. Even the North, who, how does it go? History favors the victors. But the North did a lot of fucked up shit too, as I'm digging into this. Both sides, they burned churches with people in them. They did a lot of, and a lot of the shit we learned from other battles that we had done. So I found it all interesting while researching this. So hopefully you guys like that excerpt. But yeah, I mean, even for a rough draft, I think it's coming along nicely. I can't give you a time when I'll be done. I have no earthly idea. That I know that my cutoff is 20 chapters. I think
Okay.
that's suitable. Have you built your chapters first, or do you kind of build the story and then let that dictate how many chapters are in it? Like,
Um, I kind of let the story go the way it wants to go. So I usually write in like chronological order, but there have been a couple books, especially like my billionaire books, where some for some reason the chapters came to me out of order. So I had to. So as soon as I got an idea, I just was like, oh, and then I wrote the chapter, and then later because I do a lot of handwriting because it's just easier. Um, to just get the bare minimum out, and then when I'm typing is when I add all of my detail. um Not all the time, but I do it a lot. And so like for instance book 2 of my billionaires, that came out of all those chapters came to me out of order, but I always got like the chapter written first and then came up with the name after. And so and then at the end I had a stack of papers. I don't have them over here, but I had a stack of like paper that I had to like organize how I wanted my story to go, and I put it back together, and then I went and I typed everything. So it was a lot of work, but it actually was kind of fun to write that way because I used to be so specific in how I wanted the story to proceed, and so now with my going forward, I think I'm just gonna write the chapters that I want to write, and when I feel like it's done, I'm gonna be done. You know what I mean?
yeah, that sounds good. See, me, I like to put a limit on myself because my mind wanders. If you guys don't know how my channel goes, I rant quite a bit and I might go into a tangent completely unrelated about anything.
Yep.
So I'm the kind of person who has to set those, like, okay, this is your end point. Just, if it doesn't fit, see if you can put it somewhere else or if you want to do a detail. But those, when I was thinking about it and writing it last night, uh, it was really weird because the chapters just kind of came to me and I was like, okay, I had the idea of where I want to go and what the first story is going to be about. And then, you know, the chapters are a reflection of things that I kind of want to put in there. And you said the word is pronounced it like you first. O is a U. So it's appomatic. Appomatic? Appa, appomatic. Thank you, Aaron Cooper. Um, yeah, so
Appomattox.
appomatic, yeah. That's the thing too. That's really difficult about writing this is that the English of back in the day sucked.
Yep. It's a
Like
completely different beast.
the Battle of the Appomattox Courthouse. So yeah, um, and essentially the next chapter will be dealing about with that. Hopefully, I can finish it by this next Friday, and you guys can hear a little bit more of where I'm going. It depends on how long this chapter is going to be because this is now I'm getting into specifics. We're going back through and telling about the battle. This is a really key point because the trick here is uh, I've got to make it work in such a way where it's believable. Um, but it's not too convenient because I can't just be like, "Oh, the ambush wasn't there the whole time." That
Yeah.
would be stupid.
Or you could frame it in a way that like there are ways that you could make it make sense. I don't know what those ways are at the moment without the rest of the context of the chapter, but we'll
So, kind of
play
my
with it.
thought,
We could figure.
kind of my thought behind it is that the main character is going to go in and maybe thin out how many people are there and also warn them about where the ambush is coming from because historically Lee was on the run so he didn't have that intel
Right.
And as I said, my main character is the X factor to how these things change. He
Right.
may even have something to do with Honest Abe's assassination. Who
Who knows?
knows? uh, but um, it's kind of the character works because the character works because uh, he is meant to be the factor that is the change, right? Um, and that is where I'm going to leave it up to the audience to decide: are any of these people good? Um, when I came up with this story, I thought of this thing that I always hear. Okay, so take Hitler for a second. YouTube, don't demonetize me. I'm talking about a historical figure. Take Hitler for a second, right? Now, people always say, well, you know what I would have done? I would have just gone back in time and killed him as a baby. Well, would you have? And
Right. That's pretty fucking savage.
yeah, and think about it this way. Okay, you take him out as a baby. Who's to say that he was the deciding factor of Germany going to war? If people
Right.
remember, in World War One, they were demoralized, and the U.S. did not help them out at all.
Hmm.
So what happened was when he came with the rhetoric that he was saying and communism, it seemed like an option to help the people, and it gave the people hope. I would argue it's not necessarily the man, but the ideal that the man represented. So taking out the man doesn't change that part of history.
Right.
Also,
People
there's
always do crazy things when they're desperate. When they're desperate, people will do anything.
Also, I'm toying around with an idea that maybe in the next book you will see Hitler as an actual character, and he
Hmm.
may not be the same as you remember him, because if you guys remember, Hitler was a painter, apparently a very good one.
Hmm.
And there was a point in his life where his painting was mocked, where he wasn't taken seriously, and that is said to be one of the factors that kind of changed the course of his life. Well, what if he just became a painter, but the war still happens anyways? And what if he somehow helps out? Crazy idea, right? See, these are the things that I find interesting because I'm going to be playing around with a lot of these villain kind of figures in history, playing around with different ideas, different things, one or two different changes that change a person from their course. Because remember, even in our lives, right? There's certain choices you can pick out in your life where you go, man, I really messed up. I lost a friend or something else like that from
Hmm.
this one decision I made. So you go back and you don't make that decision, right? Things are different. But how different are they? Because that decision leads to another one, leads to another one. And here we are wherever we are in life, right?
Yep. Well, the
So
other thing too, especially when you're talking about those villains, not to cut you off, but people always forget that villains are heroes in their own stories.
in his mind, he was helping his
Yeah.
people, right? He was giving his people hope. Like when you look at how Germany was, if you guys research World War One and World War Two, everybody wants to talk about World War Two, but remember, World War One was terrible within its own right,
Hmm.
and a, a lot of things happened to every side. And even though it was different alliances, different people, the people after that war were left in such a bad state that it really fostered, and I would say even contributed into going into the Second World War. And here's the crazy part to think about: uh, the America was in the Great Depression. You know how we came out of the Depression? World War II,
Hmm.
because there was a need for jobs and making guns and bombs, and that created a job market. So, what would happen if there wasn't a World War II? we'd still be in a Great Depression.
Yep.
Then how would we get out of that depression? Because it wasn't getting any better.
Hmm.
Um, so these are a lot of different ideas that may or may not factor. I'm trying to work out what works practically and things like that. But these are also a lot of ideas. And, you know, my novel is going to question, okay, if this big event doesn't happen, then what else comes out of it? Because, like I said, it's all about balance. The world will balance itself out, but would you like the change that would happen had this not happened?
Yep.
So, you know,
Well, and the other thing too to consider is if somebody did go back, for instance, and stop Hitler before he went crazy, what's to say somebody even worse wouldn't come from those ashes? Like that's the other thing that people don't think about, like especially, and we think about it because we're authors, because we have to see every single side. But some of the things that people don't really realize is like every villain is a hero in their own mind. Like if you get rid of the evil, somebody else is going to come up. I mean, it's just look like at like overseas with terrorists and stuff. Like we got rid of one and then somebody else rose, and it's just that's just the way, like.
it's just like with the mob or anything else here in America, right? You got
Yep.
rid of the mob, kind of, but then you have three or four other different criminal organizations. And the idea is because there's always a need and there's always a vacuum and there's always a person who will step up to fill that need. So you would have to essentially get rid of a lot of different things at very specific points in time in order to make the big kind of change that you're looking for. You may have to get rid of some random person who has nothing to do with it because maybe them crossing the street is the thing that kicked off something else that happened over here. And that's why I love the movie The Butterfly Effect, because there is an actual butterfly effect where it says that a butterfly that flaps their wings can create a tornado in some like foreign country, right?
Yeah.
Or it's something to that effect. So it's that everything big or small could have a rippling effect that spreads out, and you don't know where exactly that it started, but some so minuscule could be the cause of something that happens big. Uh, and that's why I've always found it interesting with history, because even historians and things like that, like you can, like for instance, with the fall of Rome, everybody just contributes that to what the Gauls, or not the Gauls, the Mongolians, and them finally destroying Rome. But there were a lot of steps to that. There were poor leadership. After Octavius, one of the last great leaders of Rome, kind of passed on, you had Caligula and other rulers who came after, and each ruler got progressively worse, and they did not pay attention to infrastructure. Really, Rome was destroyed by its lack of paying attention to its infrastructure and its people. That's how Rome fell. The outside force just came in and took advantage of their weakness at the time.
Yep.
So, hey, Killy, speaking of talking, we have Killy Talks. How are you?
Yay! Hi, Key.
You can go back through and hear my first excerpts to my new book, Fear West, which is a 4-part horror anthology. Yeah, so that's what this stream is about, and world building, and how we build our worlds out. And, we're talking about history because my book deals surprisingly uh, a lot with history and what happens if things change in a certain way. So, um, and what that looks like. The other thing I'm going to be tackling, and I know there are a few subscribers here who hear this word, and you're going to go, I don't care, but I think it fits with what I'm doing. But there will be social commentary in my book.
Of course.
Hopefully well placed. The thing that I love about horror, and this is a historical thing, horror has always been a good medium to bring up social commentary. Um, Not so much recently because it's been a little in your face, but back in the day, a lot of horror movies or even history movies, right, have social commentary in them. When you talk about war itself, you are bringing up the question of, is war good, is war bad, things like that. Um, so I'm going to have a lot of social commentary, especially my favorite one to tackle is going to be the issue of slavery. Because, oh boy, I'm waiting for the divisive talk about that one.
I'm like, you're gonna, yeah, it's gonna be interesting.
Yeah, it's going to be really, really interesting, especially because of the views my main character will have. And I'm going to be intrigued to see if people are going to demonize this character based off of that, or if they're going to listen and understand the context of how it's explained. Because I was talking about this with my coworker, right? Now we look at slavery, and I don't want people to misconstrue this because I know some asshole clip a little thing you're saying, and they'll be like, "Look at how racist they're being." No, I'm just laying out facts here. This is historical facts. Historically, slavery was a means for uh, production, and it was a driving force behind the South's value or what they felt they brought to the table. And you can look at it at several different angles. And the angle that's going to be taken a lot, and what I'm going to force people to ask themselves is, yes, it is never right to subjugate people 1000%. I think I'm so glad that we're not in that time period. Hell, I'll go a step further and say I'm glad that people actually have civil rights. Women, uh, black people, anybody of a different ethnicity. This country was built on several different cultures melding into one, and that's how it should be. But in my novel in particular, I want to dive into the concept from the Southern angle because, in their view, in their mind, the North was coming in and telling them how to run and operate their businesses. And I think it's a very interesting debate that nobody wants to talk about because it's taboo these days, but it's a part of history. And I'm very intrigued to see people's perspectives, especially when you meet certain characters who won't be the worst people that you meet, but they do own these plantations. They do own these mansions with servants and things like that. And these are the kind of questions as you're reading that I want people to really um, dive into and look at everything from all angles. I think that another thing that inspired me is the fact that, especially in schools and things like that, they don't want to focus on the negative part of history. They only want to focus on the sunshine and roses. But I think these things need to be acknowledged. We need to dig into these things. We need to question these things and not just demonize a topic. Really talk about it and study it and debate about it from every angle. Kay says, it is history and nothing will ever change it. Exactly. And that's the reason why I find it particularly interesting starting about it, because I want to talk about it. Here's a fun fact most people didn't know. When slavery ended, a lot of the slaves didn't want to leave.
Yep.
Some of the people who were their masters or whatever treated them good. They had a good thing, and they were like, well, now I'm in a foreign land. I don't have any family here. I
No
don't know
protection.
anybody. And now you're kind of just out in the street. Well, what does that look like? Like, these are like, and that created new problems, right? Because even when we stopped slavery and people were they free? No. We had to go another, what, damn near a decade before the civil rights movement came
Yep.
along. They couldn't go into shops. They couldn't sit In buses, you had to sit in the back of the bus. Like, it created a whole new demoralizing thing. And even to this day, right, there is still racial tensions. So these are the things that I want to explore in this novel and be like, okay, everybody knows the bad end of it, but what's the good end? Because not everything's 100% bad. That's a
Right.
very obtuse way of looking at the world, right?
Right.
I mean, there's some things we can agree on that is 100% not okay, right? Genocide, killing kids, things like that, kicking puppies. No, don't kick puppies. Puppies are cute. Don't ever do that. Get off my channel if you do that.
Yeah.
You
Especially if
know,
God is the one that's saying that. I mean, come on, y'all. The hell are you doing?
yeah, I mean, even a villain has a line. I won't kick a puppy. Nah. I'll kill a plant. Fuck them plants, but I won't kick a puppy. Um, but yeah, it's like, um, I want to also explore not just the villainy of the topic, but how it was perceived by the people who were in it. And look, for this, I probably won't have a very good point of reference because I don't know anybody from 1865.
Well, right.
So,
Well, Doctor Who.
I mean, yeah, we'll have to ask the doctor, but um, there were some people lost. And here's the other thing, right? As far as the servants of the house, just that one piece alone, right? Do you guys realize in Britain they have butlers and shit? Why aren't we calling slavery on that? Is that not the same concept as the house servants of back in the day? I mean, they get paid, sure, but they still are butlers and they still like do laundry, drive the person around. I find it weird how no one ever looks at that and goes, this person is kind of an indentured servant. I mean, I love Alfred and Batman, but look at Alfred was a butler, right? And
Yep.
he raised Bruce as a surrogate father.
Yep.
So I mean, how is one is it yeah, like, yes, I get the concept, people. One is bad because you're essentially forced to do everything with no pay.
Right.
But let's just flip that on its head. What if you weren't forced to do that with no pay and you were just being paid for it? Well, now optics change, right? Because you're getting a form of currency. But does that change the morality of the argument? Does that now flip the whole thing because you're getting paid to
Right.
still be looked down on? These are all things no one ever really explores. And yes, that is right. Kelly talks. Butlers are paid very well. Only rich people have them. Yes, but still, how do the rich people view them? Is my point, right? Sure, they pay them. They're an employee, but it's also a very intimate thing. They're looking after kids, they're washing clothes, they're driving
Yep.
people around. It's still, in my mind, kind of a dehumanizing thing in a sense because uh, we don't know the perspective that the people take. And that's what I'm trying to say. Like, I want it to all be about perspective, right? What
Mhm.
some people view as just vile evil might not be how the person is actually viewing it, and might not even be how the person sees that person. We are on the outside looking in saying, you're wrong. That's bad. That's evil. But maybe they're not evil to them. Maybe they treat them good. Maybe they're a valued member. These are all things that I want you guys to be able to talk about, discuss, and have uh, an intriguing conversation. Yes, because butlers are free and slaves weren't. Exactly. That is a very that is the very thing that separates them, right? Um, but like I said, my butlers have hours and usually relationships with the family. Yeah, see, these are things that I want to kind of dive into with the whole thing. And I want to switch the perspectives and kind of look at everything from all angles. And oh yeah, one could quit. In England, the upper class look down on the lower class, no matter of race, creed. It's a huge issue in the UK. Exactly.
Yep.
Exactly my point, right? And we're not talking about
Okay.
slavery. We're talking about just people, right, Killy? People who are all people. No, the only thing that's separating you is your tax bracket. But yet, what are we doing to each other still to this day? You're looking down on someone because of financial standings. So we are all, in essence, still prisoners of something, right? Whether it's classism, racism, um, anything like that. We're still judged in a certain way, but yet under the illusion that we're not judged. People
Right.
will sit there and bitch on Twitter and do all of these causes and talk all of this bullshit, right? But
Yep.
what are they doing? They're judging people for not seeing their point of view. When, guess what? You don't have to.
All the isms.
It's supposed to be the defining characteristic of America is that I can have my difference of opinion. You can have your difference of opinion. We don't have to agree, but we're all still the same. And that's why I wanted to do this. Got to go. It's been nice and great to see everyone. Thank you, KK. I hope you enjoyed this. Uh, all the ism. Yep, all of the ism, racism, all of that shit. Like that, and that's why I jumped into these shark infected waters. As you guys know, I've never been a person to shy away from these kinds of topics and debate. Even just bringing this stuff up, if I was monetized, would probably demonetize this video just for mentioning the words that I have talked about because YouTube doesn't even want any of that. They don't care about the context. Did you hear about those history channels that were getting pulled off of YouTube for just talking about? Oh yeah, there was this one history channel. I forgot the dude's name, but he was Husky told me about. He was just talking about World War II and just talking about the Nazis, right? It just said the word talking about the Nazis' paraphernalia and things like that, and the video got pulled and demonetized and all that stuff.
Of course.
And so he went through the thing, and they said racism for the thing, and he's like, "How is this racist? This is history. This is something that happened. I wasn't saying the Nazis are the best. I was talking about what happened and got pulled." And that's another reason for me wanting to write the story because I think it's important to still tackle these topics. Like it's like people, especially in this time period, just want to bury everything negative. And when you do that, you don't learn.
And you don't fix anything.
No. If I burn my hand on the stove, I remember, hey, the stove is hot. I don't want to touch it. But I don't avoid the stove. I don't never cook on a stove again.
Right.
I just go, hey, when I'm putting a pan on there, I want to make sure that I'm not, grabbing the end of the handle without my oven or without my mitt or something like that, or
Right.
I'm grabbing the rubber part and I'm not rushing around. I learn a lesson, but I don't avoid what taught me the lesson. And that is another reason for me wanting to dig into these topics because I think especially nowadays, these stupid kids, the scariest thing, right? What's the scariest thing? Racism.
Yeah.
And all of this other stuff that they're talking about with, you're triggering me and all this, all these buzz things. That's this new horror. And it's so ridiculous. It's like, but anyways, we've been going for 2 hours. I know you probably got a lot to do. I got a lot to do. I'm going to see Megan tonight. So if you guys don't know, check out the channel tonight. I will be doing a just bitching finally, which is why I'm trying to get this stupid mic to work. I'll be doing a just bitching with the beautiful bitchy unicorn, and we will be doing a double header. Got both my tickets. We'll be seeing Puss in Boots 2, which, by the way, Twitter censored my tweet for putting Puss in Boots.
Did it?
I
Okay.
was trying to figure out what I said because I'm like, wait a second. Normally I swear on my tweet and be like, okay, but I said Puss in Boots, and I did the appeal thing twice, and I'm like, review this. This is a movie.
Right.
It's literally the title of the movie. Did you censor them when they were promoting it on your platform?
Of course.
Like, so so yeah, I'll be doing Puss in Boots and Megan. Um, it's interesting because Bitchy has very particular taste in horror movies. If you guys don't know, she's 50-50 on this, so I am super excited. So my view on it might be slightly skewed. I've been like, no bullshit, this has been my one of my anticipated movies, and I'll do a top 10 anticipated movies sometime when I have time, but this is one of them. I've been waiting for Megan for a very long time. I've heard surprisingly really good reviews. um, so I'm super excited about it. She saw it and she's kind of like, they got cringe TikTok videos. I don't know. And then, she'll walk into the movie once in a while and check some stuff out. And she goes, some of it looked cool. So I'll be curious to see where she lands on her verdict. But I am super excited about it. Just so you guys know, my Megan review will be non-spoiler. My Puss in Boots, we're gonna spoil the shit out of that. It's been out for a while. I'm a super kid. If you guys don't know, another thing that even Bitchy didn't know, actually, my favorite Shrek character is Puss in Boots. So I've been super hyped for this movie for quite some time. Um, I'm a huge Antonio Banderas fan,
I
and
love
I
it
think this
so much.
I think this is one of his most brilliant, like, voice acting kind of things. It just works. I don't know why. One of my favorite things about Shrek, the third one, I don't know, Ever After or whatever, the third one in the movie. I love when they went and they found Puss in Boots and he was all fat and he had the beard. You're like, I am not the man I used to be. He was like, I just, he's like, Puss in Boots is no more. I just go and sit here and drink all the milk I can. He had the long beard. And in this one, I've also heard that it actually has kind of a really touching kind of story, which is surprising. And I like the concept of him down to his last life. I think that that's really ballsy to do a heavy topic because, it's about like mortality and like, he's coming to the end of his lives. So I think it's really cool. They could do something like silly and animated, but put a deep kind of like, oh, well, what do you do when you're faced with the prospect that you could actually die? I
Right.
like I seen a clip with like all of them showing him like losing his lives, like one where he was drinking milk or something, he fell off of this huge tower. Heights don't scare me. Ah! And they're kind of like doing a countdown to all of the lives he's lost. So check that out. I'll be doing full spoilers for Puss in Boots 2 and non-spoilers for Megan. That one seems very interesting, and dolls freak me the fuck out, to be quite
Oh,
honest, if you guys
yeah.
haven't heard my rant. Um, fuck, why? Parents, don't buy your kids dead-eyed doll. I'm sorry, those old Victorian dolls and all that. Like, and the way she looks, because she kind of looks human, but then like you get the little plastic look, like when she holds up her hand or something. I'm just like, oh god, like.
No, thank you.
And then I heard some of the shit when she was like, I'd suggest you run. And I was like, and the way she said that, I was like, yo, how many times are people going to learn artificial intelligence and using that to babysit your kid is not a good. It never turns out well. There's
Ever.
never a robot movie I see where, except for maybe AI or a Steven Spielberg movie, depending on which one, where like AI actually helped humanity. It's always like, oh, it learns, hey, humans are kind of dicks. We can do this better, and
Yep.
then we're all screwed. So stop creating robots. God,
Especially
unless you
if you
know.
don't have the knowledge to make it safe.
I know it's just like, and I love that thing too because it's like, well, would we ever be able to make it safe? Because we are flawed, but by designs, computers can make rational decisions. But what makes us human is that the rational decision isn't always the best one.
Yep.
You have to have that morally gray, and computers don't have a morally gray line. They don't have ambiguity. They see everything binary. So it's, we could never create, just my personal opinion, and you guys in the chat can let me know what you think, but I don't think it's ever possible for a human to create a perfect computer or something that'll be able to run shit, because at the end of the day, we are human and we're flawed. If you create something that's a computer and in a sense perfect in everything that it does, it's going to eclipse you, and then it's going to see you as obsolete and irrelevant. And like, why am I listening to this person who, by all accounts, is flawed? Computers. I imagine if a computer was sentient, it wouldn't see itself as flawed.
Yeah. I mean, don't you know anything about the Daleks? I'm just saying.
So yeah, I'm very intrigued to see this movie. I'm also really excited for Scream. I haven't done my trailer reaction for Evil Dead Rise yet. Super fucking excited about that movie. Um, the trailer scared the shit out of me, so I can't imagine what the movie is going to be like. And there's kids in it. There's like a little girl, and y'all know I have a daughter, so it kind of like hits me where I live because it's like two sisters and this like one sister's kid, and the mother gets transformed, and like the trailer, she was like, I had the most wonderful dream. I was playing with your insides. I was like, whoa, bitch is crazy. Cut her head off. Like, and that happens to an apartment building. There is like 2023 is looking as great with horror as 2022 was. I cannot wait. So, a lot more coming on the channel. Thank you to my sponsors. If you guys don't know, moviepalette.com, go check it out. Enter promo code ZONE15 to get 15% off of great movie palettes. Pick a movie that you really like. They probably got it. And they will take the colors from the background of the film and put it onto a palette for you, so it'll be immortalized. I have my Nick Cage movie palette, National Treasure 2. A great masterpiece from Cage himself. And speaking of Nick Cage, I can't wait for his vampire movie coming out, Rumsfeld. That is also definitely on my watch list. Spoiler alert, that will probably be on my top 10. Damn near close to like number one. I saw the trailers and I said, oh my God, Nick Cage is Dracula. That my year just gets better every year. Like,
What?
yeah, it looked, and like Rumsfeld looks depressed because he's been serving Dracula, so he's in it opens with him in a support group. He's like, my boss just wants me to do all of these things, and I just want to be my own man. And I was just like laughing my ass off. I'm like, oh, you're going for this. So I think it's gonna be like a horror comedy kind of a thing. I can't wait. It looks really cool. Nick Cage looks like he's doing channeling the old school Dracula. So he's like, it's time to eat. Oh my God. Like, I mean, it looks like it focuses a lot on Rumsfeld. So I'm hoping we get to see a lot of Nick Cage Dracula in it. But it looks like a lot about him, and, he gets these powers from eating bugs. I don't know. Like, dude, it looked like a blast to shoot. It looked like they had so much fun shooting that movie. So Nick Cage is on a roll. I'll be supporting my boy as he makes comeback. Of course, John Wick. If you guys don't know, John Wick has been a staple on this channel. It's, I would argue, one of my favorite action movies right now of all time. John Wick 4 comes out, and I said, what are they going to do, Lee? They've exhausted Nope. Now John Wick's going to fight motherfucking Donnie Yen. I am so excited. Like, I can't believe, like, like he's gonna go to Japan. Alexander Skarsgård is in it, and apparently he's like the main like head of one of the head of the tables. And I was like, oh my god, they're just I can't wait. It all started
You're
with
just making all your dreams come true.
yeah, this is going to be a great 2023. So thank you everybody for watching. Click that like button, share, pass along to your enemies, your friends, and and as always, remember there is only one rule here in the fandom zone: fear the West. Bye, everybody.